My Little Pony Friendship is Magic issue number 15 is the start of a new arc in the comic. I may go back and review the other issues, but I wanted to do the most recent issue. We start off right into the problem with Applejack and Twilight trying to figure out what to do about an infestation of mysterious cocoons that have sprouted up all over Sweet Apple Acres. Twilight, as she normally does, consults a book to find the answer and is shocked when she discovers her book has a hole torn into it. One of the things the comic series really excels at is expressive faces, and we get to see how devastated Twilight looks when she makes her way back to the library. At the library, Twilight discovers, further to her horror, that all books in her library have been destroyed. We get to see her freak out over the book, and she discovers that a bookworm is responsible for it. It reminded me of Swarm of the Century or Return to the Harmony Part 2, when Twilight tries to quickly come up with solutions that just don't work. First, she tries to zap the crap out of the bookworm, and then she tries to get Spike to grab it with his, quote, teeny tiny little fingers. Spike comes up with a plan, while staring at the reader for some reason, to magically enter the books to catch the worm, and he directly references Power Ponies in the Enchanted comic book. Now, regardless of what I think of Power Ponies, it's nice to see the comic interacting with the continuity of the show. I'd like to see it work the other way around, but I don't expect it by any means. I don't quite understand how the worm is inside the story, as it still seems to be in the real world, just small and hard to catch, but stranger things have happened. Spike, Applejack, and Fluttershy stay behind to deal with the cocoon problem, if you remember that, and Rainbow Dash, Pinkie Pie, Rarity, and Twilight are transported into the book to catch the worm. It's not important to the story, but they get oddly colored hooves when they arrive, which are never really explained. There's a really nice bordering effect going on in the story world, where the panels themselves look like they're being eaten away at. It's really neat and helps illustrate the danger of staying inside the books while they're being eaten. The four ponies in the story world discover that by acting out the stories, they can repair the books. And a bunch of references start popping up, with Pinkie Pie as Robin Hood, Rarity as Rapunzel, and Rainbow Dash acting as sort of an evil king character. Twilight gets frustrated when the story starts getting screwed up by her friend's shenanigans, and after Pinkie Pie shows off her ninjutsu, they jump out of the story and into another one, this time right into a Daring Do novel. Rainbow Dash gets really excited since she gets to pretend to be Daring Do. They get captured, though, because Rainbow Dash expected Daring Do to rescue them, forgetting that she is in fact Daring Do. After they get threatened with tribal spears, we cut back to the real world, where Fluttershy, Applejack, and Spike are investigating that cocoon problem, which is spread into Ponyville. They start to hear one of the pods make noises, and it falls to the ground and opens up. Inside is Daring Do. Yep, Daring Do. The ponies are surprised to see her, and Daring Do questions Applejack if she's working for Owizodle, to which she responds that she doesn't know who or what that is. But, wait, what? How does she not know who Owizodle is? She and the rest of the cast fought him in person. There was a whole episode about this. Spike explains to Applejack that Owizodle is one of the villains in the Daring Do books, but again, why does she not know this? The comic has already placed itself after Power Ponies with the mention of the Enchanted comic books, which means all the main six should know who Daring Do and Owizodle are already. Fluttershy figures out that if Daring Do is here, then the rest of her friends are probably in her place. She does know that Daring Do is a real person, and that the books are just retellings of her adventures, which brings me to an interesting question. Why does she assume that? Since Daring Do is a real person, the cocoons could just be traps. Heck, in the first arc we saw cocoons being used as traps for real ponies already. Applejack, apparently drunk off cider and forgetting all of Daring Don't, comes to the conclusion that the rest of the pods must contain characters as well. We cut back to the team in the books, and they've been captured by a tribe of hamsters working for the bookworm. Surprisingly, the bookworm can speak perfectly well, and I kind of imagine him with a British accent. Rainbow Dash escapes and frees Pinkie and Twilight by using a knife that falls out of her pocket. The bookworm, wearing a mask made out of paper, which he munches on, kind of a nice touch, leads Rarity at spear point over to what looks like a sacrificial ceremony. Rainbow Dash tries to swoop in and save Rarity, but she, Pinkie Pie, and Twilight fall into a pit. Rainbow Dash flies out, of course, but Pinkie and Twilight are still stuck. They're about to drown when a statue opens up and starts flooding water into the pit. I won't spoil how they get out of this situation, but it's pretty funny. The worm escapes into the next book, though, and we get another parody of literature, this time of a romance novel, with Rarity playing the part of the damsel. We're introduced to a new pony character who looks a lot like Dracula from Symphony of the Night. Rarity, having already read the books before, sees through Not Dracula and reveals that he is in fact an evil twin brother of the real Not Dracula. Not Dracula rips off his disguise and reveals himself to be the bookworm. One of the important things to note here, though, is that the bookworm is getting much, much bigger. In the last book they were in, the Daring Do novel, he was smaller than Rarity, but in this book he's far bigger than any of them. The ponies realize they're in danger of disappearing when it's revealed that the bookworm got this big by eating almost everything out of the romance novel, and a white horizon of nothingness straight out of a Patton Oswalt bit comes running towards the cast, and they get dropped into a white abyss. Sadly, no games of Dungeons & Dragons to be found. The comic cuts back to the last page of the rest of the cast outside the book, and we see a bunch of fictional characters that have hatched out of cocoons. There's a ton of references here like Tarzan, Sweeney Todd, and Lord of the Rings. We also get to see a bunch of villains that came out of the books, including the real not Dracula, ponified versions of Maleficent, Voldemort, and even Loki, looking like he did in the Avengers. Finally, we catch another glimpse of the bookworm, who has grown even bigger. I'm excited to see what happens, and I really enjoyed the action and references in the story, but I just can't help but wonder what was up with the ponies not remembering Daring Do being real. It was such a huge deal in Daring Don't, and it seems really odd that a comic book series like this that tries to remain inside the continuity of the show would forget about that but not about power ponies. I'm going to sound like a hypocrite here and say I would have preferred Daring Do remain fictional rather than what happened in Daring Don't, but you can't have it both ways. It still makes sense for this Daring Do to be the fictional one, but if Daring Do is real, then the main six should remember that. I know some people want to forget about Daring Don't, but the actual franchise shouldn't. Thanks for watching. Let me know in the comments what you think.